What is the best way to water orchids planted in orchid bark? Do you dip them in water for 30 minutes like others suggest? And this is Michelle on YouTube. So Michelle, guess what? Joellen has done this before, so we're just going to sit back and we're going to listen to her answer this question, right?
Yeah. You know, I have never heard of them soaking it in, but I just water them and with a slow drip and make sure I get all of the roots, because sometimes the roots are outside of the pot. They kind of sit in the air, just like they would on the side of a tree. You know, they kind of go out from the side of a tree where they are native in the tropics.
Okay.
And so sometimes the roots don't always go down like most other roots do into the bark. Sometimes that's why you have to repot them, because the roots tend to just go out and over the pots.
Okay.
But I make sure make sure water gets on all of the roots of it. And interestingly enough, in nature, it's misted. You think of the tropics. It rains a lot, so it gets sporadic water, almost every day.
Right.
So you got to think the leaves also absorb water.
Right.
So when I'm watering them, I water the leaves and everything. And I just make sure that it's wet. I have several of them, so I'm taking one at a time and putting it under this faucet, and not full force or anything, but just lightly, and making sure everything gets watered. And I set it aside, and I do the next one, and then I do the next one, and then I start over again. And I do the next one. Do them a couple of times.
Sure.
And once, twice a week, and that's all, because that's all I've found that my need, because they're not in that much light.
Okay. So you think dipping them in water for 30 minutes may be too much?
I just don't know if that's necessary. And I'm worried about the bark leaving the container and then getting down on the drain.
Right.
So the way I do it, I don't want to disturb the bark. I like to leave it in there so it's not floating up anywhere. And and do that. But make sure it's well drained. Don't leave water in the container, because a lot of these are in a container that's in a solid ceramic container. And if you leave water in there, that's not good.
Right.
They don't like to sit in water, because remember, in the wild, they're on the trees and they just get misted.
So you could potentially rot the roots if they're just sitting in water. Something else as you were talking, about watering your orchids, you know what I thought about too? The weight of the pot. It could tell you, what you need to know, right? If it's heavy, that means it's probably well watered. When it starts to, feel a little light, maybe it's time to consider watering again.
And sometimes the plant will tell you, because the roots or the leaves will start to shrivel a little bit, and that's really that's when it's really dry, and you really don't want it to get to that point before in between your waterings. But overwatering is probably the worst case scenario for orchids, because of the way they're used to growing in the wild versus in a container in our house.
Thanks for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed. To subscribe, click below.